Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take some time to talk about one of the parts of Pathfinder 2e that I feel makes a huge difference in combats, that being monster design. Pathfinder 2e is incredibly fun in the way that it actually incorporates creature design, and literally every single creature stat block is going to feel unique in at least one way. Basically, every type of creature is going to have some kind of fun theme or mechanics, and then each actual creature type is going to have something fun to differentiate it. Celestials are going to fight differently than demons or fiends just because there are going to be special abilities that Celestials are more likely to have. And the best part about all of this is the fact that it is actually fairly straightforward, meaning that it's not a complete and utter nightmare for GMs to actually run these types of creatures. I'll be spoiling the stat blocks a little bit for some of the super common monsters or stereotypical monsters in Pathfinder, but generally speaking, you would probably discover these things in the first couple of rounds of combat anyway, so I think it's fine. Regardless, let's just get into it. First off, the way that Pathfinder 2e creates abilities can create for some super fun encounters even at low levels. Pathfinder 2e is really balanced in that way, and there are just explicit guidelines for here's the amount of damage or type of ability that a low-level monster should have. In Pathfinder 1e, most low-level encounters didn't deal with all that many special unique abilities for creatures to have because special unique abilities in Pathfinder 1e were generally very strong, so you couldn't just throw them against low-level parties. Pathfinder 2e doesn't have this problem, and it makes for low-level fights be so much better. For example, goblin stat blocks feel like the most goblin stat blocks imaginable. Basically, all goblins can move around a little bit depending on other people's movement, which is fair because, yeah, most goblins are always in motion because they're chaotic little gremlins. Additionally, some goblins have the ability to sing, which can distract other people and just be incredibly annoying. Effectively, the favor of how goblins traditionally fight is now actually built into their stat block, and goblins can get mechanical benefits for fighting the way that they are probably already going to be fighting based on, flavor. These kinds of mechanics are built into every single low-level creature. Another fun possibility that 2e allows is for the lore of creatures to actually impact combats based on abilities. Succubi are an amazing example of this, as are all demons. Since succubi are, lust demons, it's generally antithetical to them to be rejected, and in Pathfinder 2e, if a succubi fails on diplomacy rolls against a target, or when a target, and then every time after that a target uses the demoralize action on the succubus takes damage because the fact of someone rejecting their temptation is so antithetical to their being that it literally rips them apart. That is an incredibly fun ability that brings in the lore of, oh, these are demons that are entirely based around the idea of temptation. People resisting that temptation really fucks them up. That is a much more interesting way of incorporating a being from beyond our plane of existence that functions off of alien laws. That's just a fun way of incorporating it. You don't have to just stab the succubi to death. You can also make fun of the succubi for not being very, persuasive. That just makes for some very fun encounters and makes, an alien being from beyond our plane of existence actually feel like one. Almost every single outsider, and especially every demon, is going to have an ability like this. They're all going to feel very different and very much not native to the material plane. Really, outsiders in 2e just feel amazing because they just feel completely weird, and that is a very good thing. Honestly though, the real fun of 2e monster design really starts at high level though. That's when Paizo can really cut loose and make some truly insane shit. Want to fight a manifestation of death? Well, the Grim Reaper isn't actually responsible for guiding souls to the afterlife, but they can absolutely kick your ass 10 ways to Sunday with a whole different suite of abilities custom made for just this one stat block. The only downside to high-level creatures having so many abilities is that it can get a lot more complicated for GMs. At low levels, creatures are most likely going to have maybe one or two unique actions that they can have, where at high level, Yeah, the Grim Reaper has like 7. So it can absolutely get a lot more complicated, but Paizo's good at formatting all of this, so it's not a complete nightmare. And, in my opinion, high-level play has to be this complicated. Creatures have to have all of these different types of abilities, because it's not all that satisfying if you hear all of these sorts of crazy things that monsters can do, or incredibly dangerous creatures in the lore, and then you ultimately get to it, and they just hit you, and that is their only combat strategy. Pathfinder 2e fixes this by giving them a whole bunch of crazy, unique things that they can do, and it just makes high-level combat a lot more interesting. The best thing about how 2e handles NPCs, though, is variety. Obviously, it's variety. No fight is ever going to feel the exact same unless you're literally fighting the exact same creatures multiple times, which, generally speaking, I would recommend for GMs to try and avoid, because really, Pathfinder 2e's monsters are great, and you should be trying to use as many of them as you can, so long as you fit with the theme of whatever place you're in. Yeah, a lot of the time you are just going to be fighting big guys with clubs, because Pathfinder loves big guys with clubs. But ogres will be fighting differently than giants, who will be fighting differently than just big undead, who are going to be fighting differently than just big people. That variety and scope of Pathfinder 2e NPC design is really what keeps me coming back and what is so fun about Pathfinder 2e's combat. Thanks for watching. Keep in mind that all of this is coming from my perspective, who is someone who has never actually GM'd for Pathfinder 2e. So it's coming from a player perspective rather than a game master perspective, so your mileage of my views in this video will vary. Generally though, I feel like creature design in 2e is just so much better than Pathfinder 1e, and it blows 5e monster design out of the water in every single conceivable way. I don't like to rag on 5e all the time, because it does legitimately have its draws as a game system, but seriously, its monster design is just legitimately bad. What do you think about NPC design in 2e? And what are your favorite monsters? Regardless, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.